Okay, so tonight's homework is going to look a little bit different in that we're not talking specifically about science fiction and or the proficiency. I'm mostly going to help you take a closer look at how to really annotate and highlight a text. With Harrison Bergeron, I asked you to do that within the PDF app, Pay Reports, but I noticed that a lot of you didn't necessarily have a lot of direction on how to do that, how to go about highlighting and annotating. And what does the word annotate really mean anyways? So that's what tonight's homework's all about. So at the end, you should be able to know how to take notes while you read, be an active reader, and what it should really look like when your teacher tells you to annotate. So in your whisk, again, every time you see a pencil on the slide, please don't forget, I would like for you to take notes. So just to remind you of the highlighting rules, these are a shortened version of what we pasted into our journals earlier in the year. Rule number 1, read first, highlight second. So read a paragraph or a chunk of the text at a time, and then go back and highlight what you think is the most important. You need to highlight words and phrases only. Don't do full paragraphs or sentences. And remember the rule of 5, if at all possible, and avoid coloring. All of these things should help you avoid coloring. And remember, less is more. If you remember the idea that everything you highlight is something you should eventually go back and study, if you highlight an entire text, then that means you have to study the entire text and try to memorize the entire text. And most of the time, that's not what you're being truly asked to do. Okay, one thing also to notice or to highlight is the text features. So make sure that you're highlighting anything special that's happening within the text. They will help you understand more about what you're reading. And this could be anything from the maps, charts, graphs, or pictures. Take a look at the title. Look at the subtitles. A lot of people oftentimes don't even look at the smaller italicized piece that's attached to the title. You really need to make sure you do that, especially on the Oaks, because sometimes there's valuable information in there that a question on the Oaks might actually be asking you that you don't even read. You glance over it, and therefore you're going to miss the question itself. Also pay attention to the captions. Those are the pieces that are underneath the pictures. And obviously any bold or italicized type, you should go ahead and highlight those just to bring them up and into the forefront because they're bold or italicized for a reason. All right, so as far as the titles or any directions are concerned, if there's a title, try and see if you can predict what you already know about the passage by reading that title. So read the title and then off to the side, make a quick little note. I mean, if you're reading a book that's titled Auschwitz, you're probably going to say, okay, this is probably about World War II. What do I already know about, concentration camps or something, or if you're reading, gosh, I don't even know. I mean, oftentimes titles really tell us a lot about what we're looking at. So the titles are important. You shouldn't just glance over them. And especially on the Oaks test, like I said in the previous slide, really look at the directions and any additional information, even if it's in italics. A lot of times you glance over it. Please don't. Sometimes there's information that's really important in that section. Okay, so in an Oaks prep situation or when we're taking the Oaks, if there are questions attached to the reading passage, read the questions first before you start reading the passage. So this could happen also in your history, science classes. If your history teacher asks you to read a section in the Zinn book, if there's questions attached, I don't really know if there is questions, but if there are, go and look at those questions first so you can kind of guess or zero in on what the passage is actually going to be about. This is called setting a purpose or knowing what you're going to read or look for specific things or the answers while you are actually reading. You need to be an active reader. So this means paying attention to what you're reading and looking for key information. So some things you can do to make sure you're actively reading. First, you should number the paragraphs off to the side so that if you're doing like an Oaks test or something and it specifically asks you to go back to paragraph 2, you've already numbered it, you're ready to go. Another idea, highlight as you read. That's going to force you to be paying attention. Annotate, and I'm going to teach you how to do this in the next couple of slides. And again, annotate is a fancy word for taking notes. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that, by the way. I also would really recommend writing the main idea of each paragraph next to the paragraph to make it easy to find information later. Make notes to yourself. So, how to annotate. So, first of all, you could look for things that are like text-to-self ideas, and you could code them, or you could simply off to the side write a little note that's a text-to-self note, where the text itself is reminding you something that has happened in your own life, something you've experienced, somewhere you've been, Maybe it's happened to someone you know. Those are all text-to-self experiences. Another one is text-to-text. The code for this is just TT. And this would be where the text reminds you of something else you've read or watched. So another book, another movie, a TV program, a video of some sort. So text to self, text to text, and then the last one is text to world. Of course, there's other annotations here, but these are the text to text, text to self, text to world are all fairly similar and lumped together most often. So this is where the text reminds you of something that's maybe a current event, something that's going on in the world, or reminds you of a famous person or event, or even the text makes you think about a bigger issue. You're supposed to be thinking about themes, so that's something you should start doing on a regular basis. And remember that theme is usually not stated in the text. You have to actually think about it in relation to the world around you and the lesson or theme you're supposed to be learning. All right, another idea is maybe to ask a question. If you really need to code that, put a question mark, but otherwise just ask the question itself. And the text leads you to ask a question about what you're reading. What does this word mean? Why is this happening? I don't understand. Help me. You're questioning the text simply in that last one. You just don't know what's going on. It's good to remind yourself or even to remind the teacher so the teacher can help you at another time. You can make a prediction. The code for that is just to put a big P off to the side. So the text is giving you a clue about what might be happening next. These are things that you might state. I think that this is going to happen, or I wonder if this is going to happen. That's just forcing you to think ahead in the text and to prepare yourself for what's coming. Visualizing is a good technique that allows you to picture what the writer is, forcing you to think of in your head. So the writer's helping you make a picture in your head. The code for this is a V. But basically, you're looking for good sensory details, anything that helps you see, hear, taste, smell, and touch. And then think of it as it's almost like you're watching a movie. I can't tell you how many times I've read something, and because I'm being such an active reader, I'll put the book down or I'll finish the book, and later, weeks later, I'll think, what was that really good movie I was watching? And it turns out it wasn't a movie, it was a book. Duh, Mrs. Carter. But I'm being an active reader. That's the main point. In my head, I see it so visually like it's an actual movie that sometimes I get them confused. Also, you should be looking for main ideas. I believe I know the main idea of this text or this paragraph. The code for that is MI. Just that you know what this paragraph is about, or you think this might be a really important part, those sorts of things. Okay, so there's a couple of people in class that asked about what kinds of quotes they should pull for their latest proficiency. So I was a little concerned about that, so I thought I would address that here. So you should, when you quote something, you're selecting something from the text that fits any of the following ideas. Something that maybe makes you mad, it surprises you, something you would consider repeating, something you disagree with or agree with, something you feel like is incorrect or wrong information, something that's said in an unusual or catchy way, something that is important for other people to know, something that you would like to talk about, something that reminds you of a similar situation, so something you can make a connection to. You really need to understand that whatever you're quoting from the reading, it doesn't mean you have to find something that has quotation marks around it. It means that you're finding a complete sentence or a part of a sentence with or without quotation marks that you want to copy word for word. So it doesn't have to be dialogue. This is really important. I need you guys to start understanding that because we're going to be pulling quotes for the rest of the year, basically, in anything that we're doing. And you should be pulling quotes in some of your other classes, too. And in history or science, for example, when a teacher asks for a quote, odds are it's probably not going to have dialogue. This might be the only class where you might experience dialogue. But for the most part, a quote is just something that you're copying word for word and using as support in your writing. Okay, so that's tonight's homework. I think I made you write a lot, but it was important information. And we actually are going to practice this act of annotating and highlighting on an Oaks Prep on Wednesday of this week. So you're finished, but don't forget to go back and to do your summary and question and in your WISC. And it doesn't say this on the slide, but you know what you're supposed to do. Do your summary and your question, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.